Buddhism, one of the world's oldest and most profound spiritual traditions, has endured for over 2,500 years, not by chance, but because its teachings speak to the deepest truths of human existence. Rooted in compassion, mindfulness, and self-awareness, Buddhist philosophy offers invaluable guidance for those seeking to live with integrity, wisdom, and inner peace. Beyond religion, these teachings serve as universal principles, tools for personal growth that can help anyone cultivate qualities that naturally inspire respect, trust, and admiration from others. In this video, we'll explore 18 transformative lessons from Buddhism, each carefully chosen to help you refine your character, strengthen your relationships, and navigate life's challenges with grace. These lessons are more than just philosophical ideas. They are practical, actionable insights that can be woven into your daily life. Whether it's learning the power of mindful speech, embracing humility, or practicing patience in moments of frustration, these teachings provide a roadmap to becoming the best version of yourself. The beauty of Buddhism lies in its simplicity and depth. You don't need to be a monk or a scholar to benefit from its wisdom. By integrating even a few of these principles, you will begin to notice subtle yet powerful shifts in how you perceive the world, how others respond to you, and most importantly, how you respect yourself. Let's begin this journey together. First lesson of mindfulness, the transformative power of mindfulness in Buddhism. At the heart of Buddhist practice lies mindfulness, a profound and foundational teaching that has the power to redirect. Far more than a simple relaxation technique, mindfulness is a way of being, a conscious, intentional presence in each moment, free from the distractions of past regrets and future anxieties. Buddhism teaches that true understanding and peace arise when we observe our thoughts, emotions, and surroundings with clarity and without judgment. This practice is not about escaping reality, but fully embracing it, allowing us to see ourselves and the world with greater wisdom. When we cultivate mindfulness, we begin to respond to life's challenges with patience and compassion, rather than reacting impulsively out of habit or emotion. This shift not only transforms our inner world, but also influences how others perceive and respect us. After all, self-respect is the cornerstone of earning respect from others, and mindfulness is the step toward building that foundation. Integrating mindfulness into daily life is both an art and a discipline, one that can be nurtured through simple yet powerful practices. Meditation is perhaps the most direct way to train the mind in mindfulness. By sitting quietly and observing our breath, thoughts, and sensations without attachment, we develop a deeper awareness of our inner landscape. Over time, this practice strengthens our ability to remain calm and focused, even in stressful situations. It's not about emptying the mind, but about witnessing its activity with detachment, allowing us to recognize unhelpful thought patterns and replace them with clarity and intention. Beyond formal meditation, mindfulness can be woven into the fabric of everyday activities. Mindful breathing, for example, is an accessible tool that can be used anytime, anywhere. When faced with tension or distraction, pausing to take a few slow, deliberate breaths can instantly ground us in the present moment, restoring balance and perspective. Even the simplest actions, like walking or eating, can become opportunities for mindfulness. Mindful walking transforms an ordinary stroll into a meditative experience, each step taken with awareness, feeling the connection between foot and earth, the rhythm of movement, and the sensations of the body in motion. Similarly, mindful eating invites us to slow down and savor each bite, appreciating the flavors, textures, and nourishment our food provides. This practice not only enhances our enjoyment of meals, but also fosters gratitude and presence, pulling us away from the autopilot of hurried consumption. The cumulative effect of these practices is a life lived with greater intention and awareness. As mindfulness becomes a habit, we begin to notice subtle shifts in our behavior. Less reactivity, more thoughtful responses, and a deeper connection to ourselves and those around us. Others will naturally sense this grounded presence, often responding with increased trust and respect. Mindfulness, in essence, is not just a personal practice, but a gift we offer to the world. By embodying presence and compassion, we inspire those around us to do the same, creating ripples of positivity and understanding. In a fast-paced, often chaotic world, the ability to remain centered and aware is not just a skill, it's a profound act of wisdom, one that Buddhism has cherished for centuries, and one that can guide us toward a more fulfilling and respected life. Second lesson of compassion: the transformative power of compassion. In earning respect, at the heart of Buddhist philosophy lies a profound truth. Compassion is not just a virtue, but the very foundation of meaningful human connection. The second lesson we explore: compassion is far more than mere sympathy. It is an active, intentional practice of recognizing suffering in others and being moved to alleviate it. In a world often dominated by self-interest and competition, compassion stands as a radical act of courage and wisdom. Buddhism teaches that true respect cannot be demanded or manufactured. It must be cultivated through genuine care and understanding for others. When we approach relationships with an open heart, we create ripples of trust and goodwill that naturally inspire respect in return. The journey of compassion begins, perhaps surprisingly, with ourselves. Self-compassion is the bedrock upon which all other compassionate actions are built. Too often, we are our own harshest critics, holding ourselves to impossible standards and dwelling on our shortcomings. Buddhism reminds us that we can abhor from an empty cup. By treating ourselves with kindness and understanding, acknowledging our struggles without judgment, we develop the emotional resilience needed to extend that same grace to others. This self-awareness and self-acceptance radiate outward, influencing how we interact with the world. When we are at peace with ourselves, we are better equipped to hold space for others' pain without being overwhelmed by it. Empathy is the bridge that connects self-compassion to compassionate action. It requires us to step outside our own experiences and truly imagine the world through another's eyes. This is not always easy. It demands patience, humility, and a willingness to suspend our assumptions. Yet, when we make the effort to understand someone else's fears, hopes, and struggles, we communicate something profound. You matter. In doing so, we validate their humanity, and respect becomes an organic byproduct of this connection. Empathy also guards against the superficial judgments that so often divide us. When we recognize that everyone is fighting their own battles, we are less likely to react with irritation or disdain, and more likely to respond with patience and kindness. Small, intentional acts of compassion can have an outsized impact on how others perceive and respect us. Holding the door for a stranger, offering a listening ear to a colleague, or simply smiling at someone who seems burdened, these gestures cost little but speak volumes about our character. In Buddhist communities, such actions are known as merit, or positive energy that accumulates through selfless deeds. Over time, these acts create a reputation of warmth and reliability, drawing people toward us. Compassion also manifests in the art of active listening, a skill often overlooked in our fast-paced, distraction-filled lives. When we give someone our undivided attention, free from the urge to interrupt or formulate our response, we convey deep respect for their thoughts and feelings. This quality of presence is rare and deeply valued, fostering trust. Perhaps one of the most challenging yet liberating aspects of compassion is forgiveness. Buddhism teaches that holding on to anger or resentment is like grasping a hot coal. We are the ones who get burned. Forgiveness does not mean condoning harmful behavior. Rather, it is a conscious choice to release the weight of past grievances for our own peace and growth. When we forgive, we acknowledge the imperfections of others and ourselves, without letting those flaws define our relationships. This maturity and emotional generosity command respect, as it demonstrates a strength of character that transcends pettiness or vindictiveness. Ultimately, compassion is a practice, not a destination. Some days it will flow naturally. Other days, it will require conscious effort. But each time we choose kindness over indifference, understanding over judgment, we align ourselves with one of Buddhism's most powerful teachings, that all beings are interconnected. By nurturing compassion, we not only elevate our own lives, but also contribute to a more respectful and harmonious world. People may forget what we say or do, but they will never forget how we made them feel. And in the end, it is this legacy of warmth, empathy, and genuine care that will earn us the deepest and most enduring respect from those around us. Third lesson of impermanence, the liberating wisdom of impermanence. At the core of Buddhist philosophy lies a profound truth that has the power to transform our relationship with life itself, the principle of impermanence. Known as anicca in Pali, this teaching reveals that all phenomena, our thoughts, emotions, relationships, and even our very existence, are in a constant state of flux. Far from being a pessimistic worldview, this understanding offers us extraordinary freedom when we learn to embrace it fully. The realization that nothing lasts forever liberates us from the exhausting pursuit of clinging to what cannot be held, allowing us to navigate life's inevitable changes with grace and wisdom. Our greatest sufferings often stem from our resistance to this fundamental truth. We cling desperately to relationships, possessions, and circumstances, believing they should remain unchanged. We torture ourselves with thoughts like, "This should last forever," or "I can't handle it if this changes," creating unnecessary pain. Buddhism teaches us that by releasing our tight grip on these attachments, we don't lose what matters. Rather, we gain the ability to appreciate each moment without the crushing weight of expectation. Consider how we hold a beautiful sunset. We don't try to freeze it in time, but rather appreciate its fleeting beauty all the more, because we know it won't last. This is the wisdom we can bring to all aspects of our lives. When we truly integrate the understanding of impermanence, we begin to see change, not as a threat, but as life's natural rhythm. The seasons transition, day turns to night, and our own lives move through cycles of growth and release. Those who earn deep respect from others are often those who demonstrate this graceful adaptability. The colleague who remains composed during organizational changes, the friend who offers stability during life's ups and downs, the leader who guides others through transitions with wisdom. Their strength lies not in resisting change, but in their ability to flow with it while maintaining their core values and compassion. This teaching also brings us back again and again to the preciousness of the present moment. If we truly grasp that nothing lasts, we naturally become more attentive to the here and now. The conversation with a loved one becomes more meaningful when we recognize it as unique and unrepeatable. Our daily activities take on new significance when we see them as fleeting opportunities rather than mundane obligations. This present moment awareness creates a quality of engagement that others notice and respect. The ability to be fully where you are with whomever you're with, undistracted by regrets of the past or anxieties about the future. Perhaps most importantly, contemplation of impermanence cultivates profound humility and perspective. When we recognize that all of our achievements, possessions, and even our identities are temporary, we're less likely to become arrogant or self-important. At the same time, knowing that our difficulties are equally impermanent gives us resilience during challenging times. This balanced perspective, neither inflated by success nor crushed by failure, is a quality that naturally commands respect. People are drawn to those who remain steady amidst life's changes, not because they're unaffected, but because they understand the deeper nature of existence. The practice of embracing impermanence is ultimately about finding freedom. Freedom from fear, from rigid expectations, and from the exhausting attempt to control the uncontrollable. As we learn to let go of our resistance to life's natural flow, we discover an unshakable inner peace that others can sense. This isn't indifference or detachment from life, but rather a deeper, more authentic engagement with it. When we stop trying to freeze frame our lives, we become better able to appreciate each moment's unique beauty and meet each change with wisdom. Those who embody this understanding carry themselves with a quiet dignity that doesn't demand respect but naturally inspires it, offering others a living example of how to navigate life's impermanent nature with grace, courage, and an open heart. Fourth lesson of non-attachment: the liberating path of non-attachment, a wellspring of authentic respect. In a world that constantly urges us to grasp for more possessions, more achievements, more validation, Buddhism offers the counterintuitive yet profoundly freeing teaching of non-attachment. This is not indifference or apathy, as is sometimes misunderstood, but rather a wise relationship with life, where we engage fully without being enslaved by our desires. The Buddha taught that suffering arises not from the experiences themselves, but from our clinging to them, our desperate need for things to be a certain way. When we learn the art of non-attachment, we discover an unshakable inner stability that becomes the foundation for genuine self-respect and, consequently, the respect of others. The practice of non-attachment begins with how we relate to outcomes. Modern society often judges us by results, grades, salaries, social metrics, conditioning us to fixate on destinations rather than journeys. Yet, Buddhism reminds us that while we can control our efforts, we cannot control all outcomes. The executive who pours hard into a project but remains graceful if it fails. The artist who creates for love of expression rather than applause. These individuals command respect because their worth isn't contingent on external validation. Their security comes from knowing they've acted with integrity, regardless of results. This quality radiates as a rare form of authenticity in a world obsessed with performance metrics. Material possessions often become proxies for our sense of security and identity. Buddhism doesn't demand we renounce all belongings, but invites us to examine our relationship with them. When we declutter not just our spaces but our psychological dependence on things, we experience a lightness of being. Consider the difference between someone who wears expensive clothes to feel valuable versus someone whose presence alone commands attention. The latter exemplifies how non-attachment to status symbols paradoxically elevates one's presence. This isn't about austerity, but about not being defined by what we own, a quality others instinctively admire. Perhaps the most challenging yet transformative aspect is detaching from others' approval. Like social media's like button writ large, we're conditioned to seek external validation. But when we root our self-worth in inner alignment rather than others' opinions, we stop shaping ourselves to fit expectations. This creates a magnetic authenticity. Think of leaders who speak difficult truths with compassion, or friends who offer honest support rather than people-pleasing. Their respect comes not from being liked by all, but from being trusted by all. The space between what people think of me and who I truly am is where our dignity resides. Contentment, or santosha in Buddhist terms, is non-attachment's beautiful fruit. It's the ability to appreciate the enoughness of this moment without the restless hunger for more. In a consumerist culture that profits from our dissatisfaction, contentment becomes radical. The person who can enjoy simple pleasures, a shared meal, a walk in nature, meaningful work, without constantly comparing or upgrading their experience, carries a quiet nobility. This isn't complacency, but deep appreciation that makes others feel valued in their presence, not judged by some invisible standard. True non-attachment isn't withdrawal from life, but full participation without bondage. It's the musician who loses herself in the joy of playing while being unshaken by criticism. The entrepreneur who innovates passionately without being defined by successes or failures. The partner who loves deeply without possessive demands. These embodiments of non-attachment naturally inspire respect because they represent freedom. The freedom to engage fully while remaining inwardly unshackled. When we cultivate non-attachment, We stop performing respectability and start embodying it. People may not always understand why they are drawn to such individuals, but they recognize the rare qualities of inner peace, authenticity, and emotional freedom. In a world of grasping and posturing, those who move through life with open hands and hearts become beacons of what truly matters. Their respect comes not from what they've accumulated, but from what they've released. And in that spaciousness, they create room for others to breathe freely to. This is the profound gift of non-attachment. It allows us to honor the sacredness of all things by not demanding they stay. And in that graceful release, we find ourselves held in the deepest respect, both our own and that of those around us. Fifth lesson of right speech, the transformative power of right speech. Cultivating respect through conscious communication in an age where words are often carelessly tossed into digital spaces and daily conversations. Buddhism offers us the profound practice of right speech, one of the essential elements of the Noble Eightfold Path. This teaching goes far beyond basic etiquette. It presents speech as a sacred tool that can either build bridges or burn them, heal wounds or inflict them. When we align our communication with the principles of right speech, we don't just convey information. We cultivate an atmosphere of trust, dignity, and mutual respect. People may forget exactly what we say, but they remember how our words made them feel. And it's this emotional residue that shapes their lasting perception of us. Truthfulness forms the bedrock of right speech, not as a rigid absolute, but as a commitment to integrity. In a world where exaggeration, omission, and outright deception have become commonplace, choosing honesty is a radical act. But Buddhist wisdom reminds us that truthfulness isn't merely about factual accuracy. It's about timing, intention, and compassion. There's an art to delivering difficult truths with such care that the listener feels respected rather than wounded. When people recognize that your words can be trusted, that you neither flatter falsely nor criticize maliciously, they begin to regard you as someone of substance. This reliability in speech becomes a quiet magnet for respect, as others sense they're engaging with someone authentic and grounded in principle. Kindness in speech transforms ordinary interactions into gifts. So often we underestimate the power of tone, the weight of a well-chosen phrase, or the impact of patient listening. Right speech invites us to ask, is what I'm about to say necessary? Is it helpful? Is it rooted in goodwill? This doesn't mean avoiding difficult conversations, but rather approaching them with a quality of presence that makes even hard truths digestible. A kind word during someone's struggle, genuine praise for another's efforts, or simply refusing to participate in demeaning humor. These choices accumulate into a reputation of warmth and safety. People respect those who make them feel valued rather than diminished through words. The principle of helpful speech challenges us to evaluate the purpose behind our communication. Gossip, even when veiled as concern, erodes trust and community. Right speech encourages us to redirect conversations toward what uplifts rather than what divides. Imagine the respect earned by someone known to mediate conflicts rather than fuel them, or the colleague who consistently focuses on solutions rather than complaints. This quality becomes particularly powerful in leadership roles, where words can inspire teams to their potential or drain their morale. Helpful speech also means having the courage to remain silent when words would only add heat rather than light, a discipline that conveys emotional maturity. Mindful silence is perhaps the most overlooked aspect of right speech. In our eagerness to be heard, we often forget that respect is as much about receptivity as expression. The pause before responding, the willingness to fully absorb another's perspective without mentally drafting our rebuttal. These practices communicate deep respect. Buddhist meditation practices train this very skill, observing the constant chatter of the mind without immediately acting on it. When we bring this quality into conversations, we become the rare individual who makes others feel truly heard, and nothing earns respect faster than giving someone the gift of your undivided attention. The practice of reflecting before speaking develops what might be called emotional ecology, an awareness of how our verbal emissions affect the interpersonal environment. Like dropping a pebble into a pond, each sentence sends ripples through relationships and reputations. Those who master this pause, who respond rather than react, project an aura of self-possession that others instinctively admire. In heated moments, this restraint speaks louder than any retort ever could. Over time, right speech becomes not a restriction but a liberation, freeing us from the regrets of hasty words and opening doors to more meaningful connections. Ultimately, right speech isn't about perfection but intention. There will be moments when we miss the mark, but the sincere effort to align our words with wisdom and compassion creates a noticeable pattern. People begin to associate us with thoughtful dialogue, fair treatment, and emotional safety. In professional settings, this makes us trusted collaborators. In personal relationships, it makes us cherished confidants. And in our own inner dialogue, for speech begins with thought, it cultivates a respectful relationship with ourselves. Perhaps this is the deepest magic of right speech. When our words consistently reflect our highest values, we don't need to demand respect. It flows to us naturally. The inevitable result of having used language not as a weapon or a mask, but as a genuine instrument of connection and clarity. Sixth lesson of patience, the quiet strength of patience. How Buddhist wisdom cultivates deep respect. In our fast-paced world, where instant gratification has become the norm, Buddhism offers the countercultural wisdom of patience, not as passive waiting, but as an active cultivation of inner fortitude. The Pali word Khanti encompasses this virtue, representing far more than mere tolerance. It's the ability to meet life's inevitable difficulties with unshaken presence, the courage to remain compassionate when tested, and the wisdom to understand that all things unfold in their own time. When we embody true patience, we demonstrate a rare quality that commands respect, not through loud declarations, but through the quiet power of steadfastness. The foundation of patience lies in our relationship with life's inherent challenges. Buddhism reminds us that suffering arises not from the obstacles themselves, but from our resistance to them. Our frustrated exclamation that this shouldn't be happening. The executive who remains composed during a project's unexpected delays. The parent who responds to a child's tantrum with steady guidance. The friend who listens without interruption to differing views. These individuals earn respect because they've mastered the art of working with reality rather than against it. Their strength comes from understanding that storms pass, difficulties evolve, and our growth often happens in what we initially perceive as setbacks. Breath becomes the anchor of patience in heated moments. When frustration arises, whether in traffic, during difficult conversations, or facing personal disappointments, the simple yet profound act of conscious breathing creates space between stimulus and response. This pause is where our highest self resides. The Buddhist practice of anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing, trains us to return to this anchor again and again. Those who've cultivated this skill carry themselves differently. Their calm isn't indifference, but deep attentiveness. Colleagues notice how they de-escalate tensions. Families appreciate their steady presence during crises, and communities value their ability to mediate conflicts. This quality of composed responsiveness becomes a living invitation for others to rise to their own better nature. True patience blossoms into tolerance, the ability to honor the beautiful diversity of human experience. In an era of polarized opinions and quick judgments, the patient individual becomes a bridge. They understand that every perspective, no matter how different from their own, emerges from a unique constellation of experiences and conditioning. This doesn't mean abandoning principles, but approaching differences with curiosity rather than contempt. The respect earned here is profound. People feel safe around those who won't hastily dismiss them. Like the Bodhisattva, who embraces all beings, the patient person creates an atmosphere where growth and understanding can flourish. There's also the patience to discern when to release what no longer serves us. A nuanced aspect, often overlooked. Buddhist wisdom recognizes that patience isn't endless endurance of harmful situations, but the clarity to know when persistence becomes attachment. The employee who patiently tries to improve a toxic workplace, but ultimately chooses to leave with dignity. The partner who gives a relationship every chance, but recognizes when it's time to part ways. These decisions require a deeper form of patience, the willingness to honor one's boundaries while avoiding reactive impulsiveness. This balanced approach earns respect because it demonstrates self-respect. At its core, patience is the cultivation of inner resilience, the bamboo-like quality that bends without breaking. Through meditations and mindful living, we develop the capacity to witness our reactions without being ruled by them. This emotional maturity becomes visible to others, especially in crisis situations where most people react impulsively. The community leader who remains steady during challenges. The teacher who responds to disruptions with gentle firmness. The healthcare worker who maintains compassion amid chaos. These are the individuals who become pillars in their communities. Their patience isn't weakness, but concentrated strength, and it inspires others to access their own reserves of calm. The paradox of patience is that by embracing life's natural rhythms, the delays, the detours, the necessary periods of gestation, we often arrive at better outcomes than through frantic striving. Projects mature more fully when given time. Relationships deepen through shared challenges, and personal growth happens in seasons rather than overnight. Those who understand this carry an unmistakable presence. They're the calm center around which others naturally gather. In a world addicted to speed, their patience becomes a quiet revolution, one that earns not just respect, but lasting admiration. For in the words of the Buddha himself, better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace. Patience is that peaceful word made flesh, a living testament to the power of meeting each moment exactly as it is, and in doing so, transforming it into something greater. Seventh lesson of gratitude. The radiant practice of gratitude, how thankfulness transforms and inspires respect. In a world that often emphasizes what we lack, Buddhism offers the profound yet simple practice of gratitude, a shift in perception that transforms ordinary moments into gifts and challenges into teachers, far more than polite thank yous or seasonal reflections. Buddhist gratitude, known as Kathanuta in Pali, is a radical way of being that rewires our relationship with life itself. When we cultivate genuine gratitude, we don't just list blessings. We develop eyes that see the extraordinary woven into the fabric of the everyday. This shift doesn't go unnoticed. People are instinctively drawn to those who carry this quality of appreciative presence, making gratitude one of the most understated yet powerful paths to earning authentic respect. The practice of keeping a gratitude journal is much more than a self-help technique. It's a training ground for the mind. Neuroscientific research now confirms what Buddhist monks have known for millennia. Regularly noting what we appreciate literally reshapes our neural pathways. By dedicating just 5 minutes each morning or evening to consciously acknowledging blessings, a warm cup of tea, a stranger's smile, the ability to breathe deeply, we gradually dissolve the mind's natural negativity bias. This isn't about denying life's difficulties, but about balancing our awareness so we don't overlook the goodness that coexists with challenges. The person who maintains this practice begins to carry an unmistakable energy, not naive optimism, but a grounded appreciation for life's textures. Colleagues notice how they highlight team members' contributions. Friends value their ability to find silver linings, and communities benefit from their focus on solutions rather than complaints. Expressing gratitude outwardly creates ripples of connection that elevate entire relationships and communities. In our hurried lives, we often assume loved ones know we appreciate them, yet nothing replaces the power of specific, heartfelt acknowledgement. The Buddhist approach emphasizes the importance of verbalizing our thanks, telling a coworker how their attention to detail made a project succeed, thanking a partner for their daily acts of care, or even expressing gratitude to service workers whose labor we often take for granted. These moments of recognition become deposits in what might be called the emotional bank accounts of our relationships. When we become known as someone who consistently sees and names the good in others, we earn respect not through self-promotion, but through our ability to make others feel valued, a quality that distinguishes true leaders and cherished friends. Present moment gratitude is perhaps the most accessible yet profound practice. Buddhism teaches that peace isn't found in some future achievement, but in fully inhabiting the now. When we pause to truly taste our food, feel the breeze on our skin, or listen deeply to a child's story, we engage in what Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh called interbeing, the recognition of our intimate connection with all life. This quality of attention becomes contagious. The teacher who genuinely appreciates her students' efforts creates an engaged classroom. The manager who notices employees' small wins fosters loyalty no bonus could buy. People respect those who can be fully present, because in our distracted age, such presence is rare currency. Mindful consumption extends gratitude beyond personal benefit to encompass our relationship with the world. The Buddha taught careful consideration of how we use resources, whether material goods, food, or even sensory inputs. When we eat with gratitude for the farmers, soil, and sunlight that created our meal, we naturally make more nourishing choices. When we pause before purchases to consider their environmental and human costs, we align our actions with our values. This expansive gratitude, recognizing our place in an interconnected web of existence, manifests as integrity. Others notice when someone's lifestyle matches their principles, and this consistency earns deep respect. In an era of empty virtue signaling, the highest expression of gratitude is paying it forward. Buddhist cultures have long practiced dona, generosity, as the natural outflow of a thankful heart. This might manifest as mentoring someone starting their career path, volunteering time to meaningful causes, or simply offering patience to a struggling stranger. The key lies in giving without expectation of return, the pure joy of contributing to life's abundance. Interestingly, psychological studies reveal that generous individuals are consistently rated as more respected and influential in their communities, not because they seek status, but because their actions reveal a fundamental understanding. Gratitude isn't fully received until it's given away. Ultimately, Buddhist gratitude is a lens that transforms how we move through the world. The constantly complaining coworker drains energy from a room, while the one who acknowledges challenges yet still spots opportunities lifts collective spirit. The family member who consistently expresses appreciation strengthens bonds more effectively than extravagant gifts. This practice doesn't require perfect circumstances. Prisoners in concentration camps have maintained gratitude for sunlight or shared crusts of bread. What makes gratitude so powerful in earning respect is its authenticity. It can't be faked. When we develop the capacity to find light even in darkness, to name blessings amidst burdens, we become beacons others naturally admire. In the words of Buddhist teacher Jack Kornfield, gratitude is the confidence in life itself. That confidence, quiet, unshakable, and generous, may be the most respectable quality of all. The eighth lesson of self-reflection, the mirror of wisdom. How Buddhist self-reflection cultivates authentic respect in the quiet spaces between our daily activities. Buddhism invites us to engage in a practice more transformative than any external achievement, the art of self-reflection, known as Pikakavik-na in Pali. This disciplined introspection is not about harsh self-judgment, but about developing the courageous honesty to see ourselves clearly. Like a mirror polished daily through meditation, self-reflection reveals both our radiant potential and the smudges we need to address. Those who commit to this practice carry themselves differently in the world. There's a quality of grounded authenticity that commands respect, not through pretense of perfection, but through the humility of continual growth. The practice of journaling becomes a sacred dialogue with oneself when approached through Buddhist wisdom. Rather than simply recording events, we can use writing as Fect, not Han suggested, as a love letter to our own awareness. By regularly putting pen to paper, to explore why certain interactions troubled us, what triggered our reactions, or when we felt most at peace, we trace patterns invisible in the moment. The executive who journals about leadership challenges begins to notice when ego clouds judgment. The parent who reflects on angry outbursts discovers deeper fears driving those reactions. This written witness cultivates what the Buddha called sampajanya, clear comprehension, a quality that others instinctively trust because it comes from someone who knows themselves deeply. Seeking feedback requires the vulnerability that Buddhist practice helps us develop. In our culture of curated personas, actively asking, "How did I handle that situation?" or "What could I have done better?" demonstrates rare emotional maturity. Buddhist approach transforms feedback from criticism to DNA, generosity, the gift of another's perspective, helping us see our blind spots. Imagine a manager who regularly checks in with their team about leadership style, or a partner who creates space for honest relationship assessment. These individuals earn respect, not because they're flawless, but because their commitment to growth outweighs their fear of imperfection. As the only to the extent that we expose ourselves over and over to annihilation, can that which is indestructible be found in us? Examining motivations cuts to the heart of Buddhist ethics. Before speaking or acting, the practice of pausing to ask why. Is this coming from generosity or guilt, from compassion or the desire for approval, creates an integrity that permeates our presence. When we catch ourselves donating to charity for social media praise, rather than pure generosity, or offering help while secretly resenting it, the person who consistently aligns actions with authentic values, not others' expectations, carries an unmistakable congruence. People may not consciously identify why they trust such individuals more. They simply sense the absence of hidden agendas that characterize so much human interaction. The Buddhist approach to mistakes transforms failures into jewels of wisdom. In Western culture, we often either defensively justify errors or wallow in shame, both obstacles to growth. The middle way teaches us to regard mistakes as the sand that polishes our pearl of wisdom. When we can say, "I was wrong. Here's what I learned," we model the kind of accountable leadership that inspires teams. The kind of parenting that teaches resilience, the kind of friendship that fosters safe growth. Japanese Zen incorporates this in the practice of Zen, not groveling repentance, but clear-eyed acknowledgement that liberates us to do better. Those who practice this radiant honesty become lighthouses in stormy seas for others struggling with their own imperfections. Goal setting through the Buddhist lens becomes less about achievement and more about alignment with our deepest values. The Kalama Sutta advises testing teachings against one's own experience. Similarly, our goals deserve examination. Are these aspirations truly ours, or absorbed from family, society, or ego? The young professional choosing meaningful work over prestige. The retiree redefining productivity to include presence. These are acts of courageous self-definition. When others witness someone living by inner compass rather than external validation, they may initially question, as the Buddha's own family did when he left his palace, but ultimately respect the authenticity. This journey of self-reflection ultimately ripples outward in ways we can't measure. The parent who examines their triggers breaks generational cycles. The leader who acknowledges biases creates more equitable systems. The friend who owns their patterns fosters deeper connections. Respect flows not because these individuals claim to have finished the work, but because they honor the work itself, showing up each day with the curiosity to look inward, the courage to see clearly, and the compassion to keep growing. In the words of the great Buddhist teacher, Shunryu Suzuki, In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the expert's mind, there are few. It is this quality of humble, endless learning, the willingness to continually reflect and evolve, that may be the most respectable trait of all in our complex world. The ninth lesson of humility, the quiet power of humility, a Buddhist path to earned respect. In a world that often celebrates self-promotion and personal branding, Buddhism offers the counterintuitive wisdom that true respect is cultivated not through proclaiming our greatness, but through the gentle practice of humility. Known as Nivada in Pali scriptures, Buddhist humility is neither self-deprecation nor false modesty, but rather a clear-eyed recognition of our place in the vast web of existence. When we embody genuine humility, we become like the bamboo, strong yet flexible, tall yet hollow enough to bend with the wind. This quality of being simultaneously grounded and open creates a magnetic presence that draws others toward us, earning their respect in the most organic and enduring way. The journey toward humility begins with the courageous acknowledgement of our limitations, a practice the Buddha himself modeled when he continued learning, even after his enlightenment. In professional settings, the leader who can say, "I don't know, but I'll find out," commands more loyalty than one who bluffs. In personal relationships, the friend who apologizes sincerely for mistakes strengthens bonds more than one who makes excuses. This vulnerability paradoxically becomes a source of strength. As the Japanese proverb echoes, "The bamboo that bends is stronger than the oak that resists." When we stop pretending to be perfect, we give others permission to do the same, creating spaces of authentic connection where respect flourishes naturally. Giving credit where it's due transforms workplaces and communities into ecosystems of mutual appreciation. The Buddhist concept of mudita, sympathetic joy, teaches us to take delight in others' accomplishments as if they were our own. Imagine the project manager who highlights her team's contributions during presentations, or the artist who acknowledges his mentors during exhibitions. These acts of recognition don't diminish their stature. Quite the opposite. They demonstrate the security of someone who understands that success is always collaborative. A lesson embodied in the traditional Buddhist greeting of folded hands, Anjali Mudra, which symbolizes the interdependence of all beings. People respect those who shine light on others because they recognize this as a mark of emotional maturity and team spirit. Active listening may be humility's most powerful expression in daily life. In our distraction-filled age, giving someone our complete attention, without interrupting, without mentally preparing our response, is a rare gift. The Buddhist practice of deep listening, as taught by Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh, requires us to empty ourselves of preconceptions, creating a sacred space where speakers feel truly heard. The doctor who listens intently to patients' concerns, the teacher who values students' questions as much as her own answers, the partner who hears not just words, but the emotions beneath them. These practitioners of humble listening become pillars in their community. Their respect comes not from eloquent speeches, but from their ability to make others feel valued through the simple, profound act of presence. Service is where humility takes tangible form. Buddha's own life trajectory, from sheltered prince to barefoot teacher, embodies the truth that our highest calling often lies in helping others awaken. Modern applications abound. The executive who stays late to help an overwhelmed colleague, the neighbor who shovels snow for elderly residents, the volunteer who serves meals without seeking recognition. These acts embody the Buddhist ideal of seva, selfless service, where we erase the imaginary line between helper and help. The respect earned through such service is qualitatively different from that gained through achievements. It's warmer, more personal, and longer lasting because it touches hearts rather than just impressing minds. Sharing knowledge generously represents humility's beautiful paradox. The more we give wisdom away, the more it grows within us. Buddhist monasteries have served as centers of learning for millennia because the tradition understands that teaching is itself a practice of humility. We must first master a subject enough to explain it simply, then release attachment to being the expert. The software engineer who mentors junior colleagues without condescension, the grandmother passing down family recipes with patience, the yoga teacher modifying poses for students' needs, all demonstrate that true mastery isn't hoarded, but shared. Their respect comes not from flaunting expertise, but from empowering others, an approach that creates lasting legacies rather than fleeting applause. At its core, Buddhist humility is the realization that we are both insignificant and immensely valuable, a single leaf in the vast forest, yet one without which the ecosystem would be incomplete. This balanced perspective frees us from the exhausting masks of superiority or inadequacy, allowing us to move through the world with quiet confidence. People respect the humble not because they shrink from their light, but because they understand that light becomes brighter when shared. Like the lotus flower rooted in mud yet blooming unstained above the water, the humble individual navigates life's complexities with grace, earning not the loud cheers of admiration, but the deeper, more enduring respect that comes from being authentically human among humans. In the words of the Dalai Lama, the more you are motivated by love, the more fearless and free your action will be. Humility, ultimately, is that fearlessness to be exactly who we are, no more, no less. And in that sacred space of authenticity, respect naturally takes root and flourishes. 10th lesson of right livelihood. The Buddhist path to earning respect through ethical work. In a world where success is often measured by titles, salaries, and material acquisitions, Buddhism offers a radically different metric. The concept of right livelihood, one of the key elements of the Noble Eightfold Path. This teaching goes beyond mere career advice. It presents work as spiritual practice, a daily opportunity to express our deepest values through action. When we align our professional lives with principles of compassion and integrity, we don't just earn a living. We earn the lasting respect of those who recognize the congruence between our words and deeds. The Buddha himself cautioned against occupations that bring harm to others, reminding us that how we sustain ourselves materially cannot be separated from how we nourish ourselves spiritually. Choosing a career aligned with our values requires both courage and introspection, qualities Buddhism helps cultivate through meditation and self-reflection. In practical terms, this might manifest as the financial advisor who steers clients toward ethical investments, the chef committed to sustainable sourcing, or the entrepreneur whose business model addresses social inequities. These individuals often face harder paths than those pursuing conventional success, yet they carry themselves with a quiet dignity that others instinctively admire. Their respect comes not from the size of their office, but from the consistency of their character, proving the Buddhist teaching that true prosperity is measured by peace of mind rather than bank accounts. When our work becomes an extension of our ethics, we transform daily tasks into acts of meaning that inspire those around us. The Buddhist principle of ahimsa, non-harming, extends naturally to our vocational choices. Right livelihood invites us to examine industries and practices with clear-eyed honesty. Avoiding work that exploits sentient beings, degrades the environment, or manipulates others. In contemporary terms, this might mean rejecting roles in predatory lending, factory farming, or addictive technologies. The employee who leaves a lucrative position over ethical concerns. The investor who divests from harmful industries. These professionals demonstrate that integrity isn't conditional. While such choices may involve short-term sacrifices, they build long-term reputations as people of principle. As the ancient texts remind us, wealth gained through wrongdoing is like sandcastles before the tide, impressive momentarily, but ultimately unstable. The respect earned through ethical consistency, by contrast, stands the test of time. Day to day, business ethics form the living texture of right livelihood. Buddhism teaches that every transaction carries karmic weight. The salesperson's honesty about product limitations, the contractor's refusal to cut corners, The executive who prioritizes fair wages over maximum profits. These choices create ripples far beyond immediate circumstances. Colleagues remember the manager who owned mistakes rather than blaming subordinates. Clients trust the consultant who recommends simpler solutions over expensive, unnecessary services. In a landscape where business ethics often seems an oxymoron, those who practice transparent integrity become beacons, their reputation spreading not through self-promotion, but through the quiet testimony of those they've treated fairly. The Dhammapada's wisdom rings true. Better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace. Similarly, one ethical business decision often speaks louder than 100 mission statements. Right livelihood also honors the Buddhist middle way by rejecting workaholism as much as sloth. The meditation teacher who models work-life balance, the CEO who takes parental leave without apology. These professionals challenge toxic productivity culture through their actions. They understand that burning out serves no one, and that presence is the greatest gift we can offer both our careers and our loved ones. This balanced approach earns a particular kind of respect. Not the odd whispers reserved for work martyrs, but the deeper admiration for those who demonstrate that professional success and human wholeness need not be opposing forces. Their example gives others permission to set healthy boundaries, creating workplaces where people feel valued as complete human beings rather than mere productivity units. Ultimately, right livelihood blossoms into active contribution using our skills to alleviate suffering as the Bodhisattva ideal teaches. This might take countless forms. The lawyer providing pro bono services, the marketer helping nonprofits amplify their messages, the farmer implementing regenerative practices. When we view our work as an offering rather than just an obligation, we infuse even mundane tasks with sacred purpose. The respect that follows isn't sought after. It arises naturally, like flowers blooming around someone who tends the garden of collective well-being. In the words of the Zen shop wood, carry water. Enlightenment is found in doing what needs doing. Right livelihood transforms our daily work into a path of awakening, where respect becomes not something we pursue, but something that flows naturally from lives lived in alignment with truth, compassion, and the courageous choice to do no harm while doing much good. 11th lesson of forgiveness, the liberating path of forgiveness, a Buddhist approach to earning deep respect. In the tapestry of Buddhist teachings, forgiveness emerges as one of the most transformative practices, not as a moral obligation, but as a profound act of self-liberation that naturally commands respect. The Pali word, kamma, unlike superficial pardons that leave resentment simmering beneath the surface, true Buddhist forgiveness is an alchemical process that transforms the poison of bitterness into the medicine of wisdom. Those who master this practice carry themselves with a remarkable quality, simultaneously strong enough to set boundaries yet free enough to release the past. This rare combination earns them not just admiration, but deep reverence from those who witness such emotional maturity. The journey of forgiveness must begin with ourselves, a truth often overlooked in our haste to forgive others. Buddhist psychology recognizes how self-condemnation creates invisible chains that limit our growth. The executive who replays an old career mistake, the parent haunted by past parenting choices, the friend who can't release regret. These patterns form what Tibetan Buddhism calls hungry ghosts of the psyche, forever consuming our peace. Self-forgiveness, as taught in the Metta Sutta, involves extending the same unconditional friendliness to ourselves that we'd offer a suffering child. This isn't self-excuse, but radical accountability, acknowledging mistakes while recognizing our fundamental worthiness. When we stop flogging ourselves with past failures, we stand taller in the present. Others sense this self-respect and respond in kind, proving the Buddha's insight that you yourself must strive. The Buddhas only point the ways. Forgiving others represents the next sacred frontier. The Buddhist approach is profoundly pragmatic. Holding resentment, the Buddha noted, is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. In workplaces, the colleague who can collaborate professionally with past rivals demonstrates this wisdom. In families, the person who attends gatherings without dredging up old wounds creates space for healing. This isn't naive trust, but wise discernment. We protect ourselves from harm while refusing to let past harm define our present. The Dalai Lama's interactions with China exemplify this. Such forgiveness doesn't erase memory, but transforms our relationship to memory, allowing us to reference the past without being enslaved by it. Those who achieve this balance earn respect for their emotional sovereignty, the ability to interact with integrity unclouded by old grievances. Compassion is the golden thread that makes Buddhist forgiveness transformative rather than perfunctory. The practice of Tonglen, taking and sending, teaches us to breathe in others' pain and breathe out relief, including for those who've hurt us. This doesn't mean tolerating abuse, but recognizing that hurt people hurt people. The manager who understands an employee's harsh words came from personal struggles. The spouse who sees their partner's flaws as wounds rather than weapons. These perspectives create space for healing. This quality of mercy, when grounded in wisdom rather than weakness, becomes what the Japanese call kancha, a grateful heart that transforms relationships. People respect those who can disagree without demonizing, who can address wrongdoing without stripping others of dignity. The ripple effects of forgiveness extend far beyond personal peace. Neuroscience now confirms what monks have long known. Forgiveness practice reduces stress hormones and enhances prefrontal cortex function. In practical terms, this means the forgiving leader makes clearer decisions. The forgiving parent responds more patiently. The forgiving friend offers wiser counsel. Their steadiness is under pressure, becomes legendary, their counsel sought after. Like the bodhisattva who returns to samsara to aid others, they transform personal liberation into collective healing. Ultimately, Buddhist forgiveness is a homecoming to our true nature, unburdened by the weight of what should have been. The Zen saying, "Let go or be dragged," captures its urgency. Those who choose to let go don't erase the past. They cease allowing it to colonize the present. In doing so, they become living proof of the Buddha's radical teaching that peace is possible here and now. Not because circumstances are perfect, but because our hearts have learned to dance with imperfection. This hard-won freedom radiates as quiet authority, earning a respect more profound than any title or achievement could confer. The respect reserved for those who have turned life's wounds into wisdom, and whose very presence reminds others that liberation is always possible. 12th Lesson of Contentment, the art of contentment, Buddhist wisdom for cultivating inner wealth and outer respect. In a world endlessly whispering that we need more possessions, more achievements, more stimulation, Buddhism offers the revolutionary practice of santosha, or contentment, one of the niyamas in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, that the Buddha, this is not passive resignation, but an awakened choice to find fullness in the present moment, exactly as it is. The Buddha, after experiencing both extreme luxury and severe asceticism, discovered enlightenment only when he embraced the middle way, a path of enoughness that neither grasps nor rejects. Those who cultivate this quality carry an unmistakable presence. Their very being seems to whisper, "I lack nothing," creating a magnetic aura that draws respect not through displays of wealth or status, but through the quiet confidence of someone at peace with life's unfolding. Simplifying our lives physically and mentally creates the conditions for contentment to flourish. The Zen aesthetic of wabi-sabi finds beauty in imperfection and simplicity, while Buddhist monks exemplify how few possessions are truly needed for a meaningful life. For modern practitioners, this might translate to decluttering not just closets, but calendars, releasing the compulsion to constantly consume, achieve, and be entertained. The executive who finds his boardroom decisions sharpen after downsizing his hectic schedule. The parent who discovers more connection with children after limiting screen time. These are practical applications of Buddhist simplicity. When we stop trying to fill inner emptiness with outer accumulation, we project a grounded authenticity that others instinctively trust. Content people don't need external validation, and this very independence from others' opinions makes their presence paradoxically more influential and respected. Accepting the present moment represents contentment's core practice. The Buddha taught that suffering arises from craving for things to be other than they are. What psychologist Carl Rogers called the conditions of worth we place on happiness. Contentment asks us to find the sacred in ordinary moments. The steam rising from morning tea, the sound of rain against windows, the comfort of a well-worn chair. Neuroscience reveals this practice literally rewires our brains. Regular appreciation of small pleasures increases serotonin more reliably than chasing major achievements. The teacher who radiates calm during schoolyard chaos. The nurse who maintains compassion amid hectic shifts. These individuals demonstrate how contentment isn't about perfect circumstances, but perfect attention to the gifts already present. Their ability to remain unshaken by life's inevitable ups and downs earns them profound respect as people who embody stability in an unstable world. Contentment naturally refines our relationships, acting as a filter that reveals which connections nourish rather than deplete us. Buddhist psychology identifies admirable friends, Kaliyu Amita, as essential companions on the path. Those who inspire our better nature rather than trigger our cravings or negativity. Content people gradually gravitate toward these uplifting relationships. This isn't elitism, but self-respect, the understanding that we become like those we surround ourselves with. The partner who chooses deep conversations over gossip. The professional who networks with innovators rather than complainers. Their social selectivity isn't rejection of others, but allegiance to their highest self. Over time, this discernment earns respect as people recognize their relationships are based on mutual growth rather than neediness or pretense. Mindfulness, as the Buddha taught in the Satipatthana Sutta, is contentment's most powerful ally. When we fully inhabit the present, noticing the play of light through leaves with the same attention we'd give a spectacular sunset, we discover each moment holds its own completeness. Modern applications abound. The chef who finds joy in perfectly dicing vegetables. The programmer absorbed in elegant code. The parent fully present for a child's bedtime story. This quality of engagement transforms ordinary tasks into meditation. What Zen calls chopping wood, carrying water. People respect those who can find meaning in mundane activities because it reveals a mind that's free, not dependent on external excitement for happiness. In leadership roles, this manifests as the ability to celebrate small wins along the grand journey, keeping teams motivated through daily challenges. Ultimately, Buddhist contentment represents the ultimate rebellion against our consumerist conditioning, a quiet revolution that begins within and radiates outward. The Dhammapada states, health is the greatest gift, contentment the greatest wealth. Those who embody this truth become living examples that happiness isn't something to acquire, but something to realize. Their respect comes not through striving to impress, but through the irresistible authenticity of someone who has discovered the profound secret that the keys to peace were never hidden in some distant future or perfect circumstance, but were always here in this breath, in this moment, in the courageous choice to say, "This is enough, and I am enough." And in a world starving for such wisdom, those rare souls who have found sufficiency amid society's scarcity mindset become beacons, not by preaching, but simply by being, reminding us all of the abundance that was here all along. 13th lesson of generosity, the boundless heart of generosity. How Buddhist giving cultivates deep respect in the tapestry of Buddha's teachings. Generosity, known as DNA, stands as the very foundation of the spiritual path, the first paramita or perfection to cultivate. The Buddha placed such importance on this virtue that he taught it as both the starting point for newcomers and a lifelong practice for advanced practitioners. Far beyond mere charity, Buddha's generosity represents a radical shift in consciousness, from the illusion of separation to the wisdom of interconnectedness. When we give freely without expectation of return, we embody the understanding that all beings are threads in the same cosmic web. Those who live this truth carry themselves differently. Their generosity of spirit shines through in countless ways, earning them not the superficial admiration reserved for the wealthy or powerful, but the profound respect accorded to those who remind us of our better nature. Spontaneous acts of kindness represent generosity in its purest form, unplanned, uncalculated, flowing from moment to moment as life presents opportunity. The Japanese call this omotenashi, the spirit of wholehearted hospitality, extended even to strangers, a commuter helping a struggling mother with her stroller, a neighbor sharing garden vegetables, a colleague offering to stay late to help meet a deadline. These small ripples create waves of goodwill that transform communities. Buddhist psychology reveals an exquisite paradox. The giver often receives more benefit than the recipient, as neuroscientists now confirm that altruistic behavior activates the brain's pleasure centers more reliably than selfish pursuits. The respect earned through such gestures isn't forced or sought. It arises naturally when people consistently experience someone whose default setting is kindness rather than calculation. Material generosity, when practiced with Buddhist wisdom, becomes a sacred alchemy that transforms possessions into connection. The ancient practice of DNA challenges our modern tendency to hoard, inviting us to see resources as flowing energy rather than static possessions. This might manifest as the entrepreneur who creates fair profit-sharing models, the artist who offers free workshops in underserved communities, or the family that tithes a portion of income to causes they believe in. The Vimalakirti Sutra beautifully illustrates this principle. Through the lay practitioner Vimalakirti, who demonstrated that true generosity isn't measured by what we give, but by our willingness to relinquish attachment. Those who give this way, not from surplus, but from sincerity, project a quiet authority that commands respect precisely because it makes no demands for recognition. The gift of time represents one of the most precious forms of generosity in our accelerated world. Voluntarism, when rooted in Buddhist principles, becomes seva, selfless service performed as spiritual practice. The doctor offering free clinics, the retirate tutoring immigrant children, the teenager helping at an animal shelter, these are modern bodhisattvas in action. Buddhist monasteries have long served as centers of learning, healing, and refuge, precisely because they institutionalize this ethic of service. In professional settings, the mentor who invests time in developing junior staff, the manager who prioritizes employees' growth, their generosity with time creates loyal teams and enduring legacies. The respect they earn isn't tied to titles, but to their visible commitment to lifting others as they climb. Cultivating a generous mindset represents the flowering of this practice into a way of being. The Buddha taught that generosity should permeate our thoughts, wishing others well, words speaking with kindness, and actions giving without hesitation. This holistic approach transforms every interaction into an opportunity to give. The teacher's patience with a struggling student, the driver who lets another merge with a smile, the friend who listens without distraction. The Tibetan practice of Tonglen, taking and sending, deepens this further as we mentally breathe in others' suffering and breathe out relief. Over time, such practitioners become what Buddha's texts call joyful givers, their very presence a gift that puts others at ease. The respect they inspire has a particular quality, less about awe and more about trust, the kind that makes people instinctively open up in their presence. Ultimately, Buddha's generosity dismantles the illusion of separateness that causes so much suffering. The Jataka tales overflow with stories of the Buddha's past lives, where he gave away everything. While we may not be asked for such extreme sacrifice, each act of giving, no matter how small, is a stone creating ripples across the pond of human connection. The respect earned through generosity isn't its goal, but its natural byproduct, a reflection of the giver's understanding that in a world of impermanence, what we cling to slips through our fingers, while what we give away, as the Buddha taught, thousands of candles can be lit from a single candle, and the life of the candle will not be shortened. Happiness never decreases by being shared. Those who live this truth become human candles, illuminating darkness, not through loud proclamations, but through the quiet, enduring glow of a heart that knows giving and receiving are ultimately one. 14th lesson of equanimity. The unshakable balance, cultivating equanimity as a path to respect in the swirling currents of modern life, where emotions are easily triggered and reactions often amplified. Buddhism offers the stabilizing practice of upekkha, equanimity, the fourth Brahma Vihara, or divine. This is not indifference or emotional suppression, but rather the cultivated ability to meet all of life's experiences with a balanced, compassionate presence. The Buddha described equanimity as abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will, comparing it to the earth that receives all things equally, whether pure or impure. Those who develop this quality carry themselves with a remarkable steadiness that others instinctively trust and respect, not because they are unmoved by life, but because they have learned to ride its waves without losing their center. The foundation of equanimity is laid through meditation, Buddhism's laboratory for observing the mind's patterns without being swept away by them. In the quiet space of mindfulness practice, we begin to notice how pleasure triggers grasping, pain sparks aversion, and neutral experiences often breed boredom. The three poisons that disturb our equilibrium. The executive who meditates daily develops the capacity to receive bad quarterly reports and glowing praise with the same measured response. The parent practicing mindfulness responds to a child's tantrum with calm guidance rather than reactive anger. Neuroscience now confirms what monks have known for millennia. Regular meditation thickens the prefrontal cortex, enhancing emotional regulation. This hard-won equilibrium earns profound respect in professional and personal spheres as others come to rely on the stability such individuals provide during turbulent times. Embracing life's inherent uncertainty represents equanimity's next frontier. The Buddha's teaching of anicca, impermanence, reminds us that all conditions, pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral, are fleeting. Modern applications of this wisdom abound. The entrepreneur who adapts to market shifts without panic, the athlete who accepts injuries as part of the journey, the partner who understands relationships naturally ebb and flow. This isn't passive resignation, but wise accommodation, like bamboo bending in strong winds rather than rigid oaks that snap. Those who demonstrate this quality during organizational changes or family crises become anchors for others, their respect growing in proportion to their ability to provide steady leadership when moths feel unmoored. The Japanese concept of ganbaru, persisting with equanimity, captures this blend of determination and acceptance that earns such deep admiration. Maintaining perspective during challenges is where equanimity transforms from philosophy to lived wisdom. The Buddhist simile of the two arrows is instructive. Life's first arrow is the inevitable pain, the failed project, the broken relationship, the health diagnosis. The second arrow, our reaction to the pain, is optional. The meditator who observes a painful sensation without adding mental commentary demonstrates this at the bodily level. The leader who addresses setbacks with clear-eyed assessment rather than emotional drama manifests it organizationally. This capacity stems from what Tibetan Buddhism calls Yijin Norbu, the wish-fulfilling jewel of taking adversities as opportunities for growth. Colleagues respect the manager who can acknowledge problems without catastrophizing, just as friends value the companion who can sit with their pain without needing to fix it. This balanced responsiveness becomes a rare gift in our reactive age. Equanimity blossoms fully when we release our habitual judgments about people and situations. The Buddha's radical teaching of non-duality invites us to see beyond surface appearances to the common humanity in all. In practice, this means the teacher who treats each student with equal attention, regardless of background. The nurse who cares for difficult patients with the same compassion as pleasant ones. The juror who weighs evidence without bias. The Zen saying, "First there is a mountain, then there is no mountain, then there is," describes this evolution from naive acceptance to analytical skepticism, to transcendent acceptance. Those who reach this stage carry an aura of impartial fairness that draws others to them, not because they erase all distinctions, but because they relate to all beings from that place of fundamental equality beneath life's varying circumstances. Ultimately, Buddhist equanimity represents neither cold detachment nor emotional indulgence, but what Western psychology now calls emotional agility, the ability to experience feelings freely while choosing how to act on them wisely. The respect it earns is of a particular quality, less about dazzle and more about reliability, the kind that makes people say when everything was falling apart, they were the calm at the center of the storm. In a world addicted to extremes, those who can maintain this poised presence become like the lotus flower in Buddhist imagery. Rooted in muddy waters, yet untainted by them, their petals open equally to sunlight and rain. They remind us through their very being that peace isn't the absence of storms, but the capacity to abide through them, a lesson that earns not just momentary admiration, but enduring reverence. As the Buddha taught, just as the ocean has one taste, the taste of salt, so too does my teaching have one taste, the taste of freedom. Equanimity is that freedom tasted, embodied, and through its embodiment, inspiring all who encounter it to seek their own liberation from life's roller coaster of reactions. 15th lesson of inner peace. The radiant stillness within cultivating inner peace as the foundation of Buddhist wisdom. In the heart of Buddhist practice lies the luminous quality of inner peace, not as a distant goal to be attained, but as our fundamental nature to be remembered. The Pali word santi and Sanskrit shanti point to this profound tranquility that persists beneath life's changing circumstances. Unlike temporary calmness, dependent on external conditions, Buddhist inner peace is compared to the depths of the ocean. While surface waves may rage, the depths remain undisturbed. Those who cultivate this quality carry an unmistakable presence. Their very being seems to emanate a stillness that others instinctively gravitate toward, not because they avoid life's complexities, but because they meet them with unshakable centeredness. This is the peace the Buddha exhibited, even when facing adversity, a peace that commands respect, not through force, but through its magnetic authenticity. Silence and solitude serve as the sacred crucible for inner peace to emerge. In our hyper-connected world, where noise and distraction are constant, the intentional practice of withdrawing, as the Buddha did during his regular solitary retreats, becomes radical self-care. This isn't escapism, but a homecoming to our true selves. Modern neuroscience confirms what monastic traditions have long known. Periods of silence regenerate the nervous system, enhance creativity, and improve emotional regulation. The executive who begins each morning with 20 minutes of silent meditation, the parent who takes a mindful walk alone each evening, the student who journals in a quiet corner. These practitioners of intentional solitude develop an inner compass that guides them through outer chaos. Others notice this quality, the ability to be fully present without needing constant stimulation, and recognize it as a mark of depth in an increasingly shallow world. Relinquishing the illusion of control represents a pivotal step toward lasting peace. The Buddha's teaching of anatta, non-self, reveals how much of our suffering stems from the arrogant assumption that we can and should control people and outcomes. The practice of surrender in Buddhism isn't passive resignation. but wise discernment between what can be influenced and what must be accepted. The farmer who tends crops diligently yet accepts unpredictable weather. The doctor who provides excellent care while acknowledging medicine's limits. The activist who works passionately while releasing attachment to specific outcomes all demonstrate this balanced engagement. Their peace amid uncertainty doesn't indicate lack of caring, but rather a mature understanding of life's inherent unpredictability. This quality earns profound respect as it models how to be fully committed, yet paradoxically detached. A paradox that, when lived, becomes liberating rather than contradictory. Forgiveness and acceptance are the twin pillars that support the architecture of inner peace. Buddhist psychology recognizes how resentment and resistance create inner turbulence far more damaging than the original offenses. The practice of forgiveness, whether through traditional metta, loving kindness, meditation, or modern therapeutic techniques, isn't about condoning harm, but about refusing to let past pain colonize the present. The business leader who can address unfair competition without bitterness. The family member who interacts comfortably with estranged relatives during holidays. The survivor who speaks of trauma with clarity rather than venom. These individuals demonstrate forgiveness as an act of self-liberation. Their peace isn't fragility, but formidable strength, earning them a respect that loud proclamations of toughness never could. Similarly, radical acceptance, the willingness to meet life as it is, transforms obstacles into opportunities for growth, a perspective that inspires others facing their own challenges. Authentic living emerges as both the fruit of inner peace and its nourishment. The Buddha's famous instruction, to be a lamp unto yourself, points to the courage required to live from our deepest truth rather than societal expectations. In practical terms, this might manifest as the artist who creates from vision rather than trends, the employee who speaks truth to power with respectful clarity, or the retiree who defines fulfillment on personal terms rather than cultural scripts. This authenticity creates what the Japanese call ikigai, the intersection of what we love, what we're good at, what the world needs, and what we can be paid for. Those who find this alignment carry an infectious vitality that others instinctively admire, not because they have all the answers, but because they're at peace with life's beautiful questions. Their respect comes not from perfection, but from the wholeness of someone who has stopped pretending to be anything other than themselves. Ultimately, inner peace radiates outward in ways that transform not just individuals, but communities. Like the Buddha, sitting serenely beneath the Bodhi tree as Mara's armies assailed him, their presence alone reminds us that peace is possible, not as some future achievement, but as an ever-available quality of being. In a world starving for authenticity, such individuals become like clear mountain springs, their very existence refreshing all who encounter them. The respect they inspire isn't the flashy kind that fights, but the enduring reverence we hold for those rare souls who seem to carry an eternal sunrise within them, illuminating darkness not by fighting it, but by embodying the unshakable truth that light is our original nature. As the Dhammapada teaches, peace is the highest happiness, and those who find this happiness within become living proof that the Buddha's path isn't about escaping the world, but about transforming our experience of it. From suffering to peace, from fragmentation to wholeness, from seeking respect to embodying the qualities that naturally inspire it in all who cross our path. 16th lesson of mindful consumption. Conscious living. The Buddhist art of mindful consumption as a path to respect in an era of unprecedented abundance, where advertisements scream for our attention and fast fashion fills landfills. Buddhism offers the radical practice of mindful consumption, a profound reimagining of our relation. Rooted in the fifth precept's injunction against intoxication and the broader principle of ahimsa, non-harming, this teaching extends far beyond what we eat to encompass everything we take into our bodies, minds, and environment. The Vietnamese Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh modernized this ancient wisdom through his concept of interbeing, reminding us that every purchase, every bite, every click sends ripples through our interconnected world. Those who embody this principle carry themselves with a quiet integrity that others instinctively admire, not through preachiness, but through the consistency of their choices that reveal deep respect for life in all its forms. Evaluating true needs versus passing wants is the first step in mindful consumption, a practice the Buddha modeled when he lived with just 3 robes and a begging bowl. In today's context, this might manifest as the professional who audits subscriptions and memberships annually, the family who adopts a one-in, one-out policy for possessions, or the student who questions each purchase for its environmental impact. This discernment mirrors the Buddhist concept of santuthi, contentment, finding fulfillment in enough rather than endlessly pursuing more. When colleagues notice someone wearing the same quality items for years rather than chasing trends, or when friends observe thoughtful hesitation before purchases, they encounter someone operating from different values than mainstream consumers. This departure from societal norms doesn't go unnoticed. It earns a particular kind of respect, reserved for those who seem immune to peer pressure and advertising's siren calls. Choosing ethical brands transforms shopping from mindless habit to moral practice. The Buddha's teachings on right livelihood extend naturally to supporting businesses that honor workers and ecosystems. The coffee drinker who researches fair trade certifications, the tech enthusiast who prioritizes repairable devices, the parent selecting toys made from sustainable materials. These consumers vote with their wallets in ways that align with Buddhist economics. Their choices often require more research and sometimes higher upfront costs, revealing a values-driven patience that contrasts sharply with impulse buying. Co-workers who notice reusable utensils in meetings, friends who receive thoughtfully sourced gifts, and neighbors who share about local artisans. These practitioners of mindful consumption become quiet influencers. Their respect comes not from the prestige of their possessions, but from the ethics behind them, proving the Buddha's insight that true wealth lies not in having much, but in needing little. Waste reduction embodies the Buddhist principle of non-harming, intangible daily actions. The Zen tea ceremony, where every movement honors the materials used, finds modern expression in bringing reusable containers to restaurants, repairing clothing rather than discarding it, or composting food scraps. These practices flow from the Buddhist understanding of pratitya samutpada, dependent origination, recognizing how our waste impacts distant landfills and ocean ecosystems. The office worker who prints double-sided becomes an accidental environmental educator. The family using cloth diapers demonstrates intergenerational responsibility, and the student carrying a reusable water bottle normalizes sustainable habits. Their actions often speak louder than any sustainability lecture could, earning respect through unassuming consistency. Over time, these small choices accumulate into a visible lifestyle that inspires others to reflect on their own consumption patterns. Mindful media consumption represents perhaps the most urgent application of this teaching in our digital age. Just as monks traditionally guarded their senses against harmful inputs, modern practitioners can curate their information diets with similar care. This might mean setting boundaries around news consumption to avoid anxiety spirals, unsubscribing from manipulative marketing emails, or choosing documentaries over sensationalist entertainment. The professional who cites well-researched sources in meetings, the parent modeling balanced screen time for children, the friend who engages in substantive conversations rather than gossip. These individuals demonstrate that what we consume mentally shapes our consciousness as surely as physical food shapes our bodies. Their discernment earns intellectual respect, positioning them as voices of reason in chaotic information landscapes. Ultimately, mindful consumption blossoms into a holistic way of being that transcends individual actions. like the Buddhist monks who chant before meals to remember the interconnected web that brought them nourishment. The respect this earns isn't the flashy kind bestowed upon lavish spenders, but the deeper admiration reserved for those whose lives demonstrate alignment with their values. In a world of climate crisis and mental health epidemics fueled by overconsumption, those practicing mindful consumption become beacons of sanity, living proof that well-being isn't found in accumulation, but in intentional, awake participation with the world. As Thich Nhat Hanh taught, every time we spend money, we're voting for the kind of world we want. Those who cast these votes consciously inspire others to do the same, creating ripples of respect that extend far beyond personal reputation to touch the very future of our shared planet. 17th Lesson of Kindness. A Buddhist path to earning authentic respect in the tapestry of Buddhist teachings. Kindness shines as both the simplest practice and the most transformative. A quality so fundamental. My religion is kindness. Unlike fleeting acts of politeness, Buddhist kindness, Maitri in Sanskrit, springs from a profound understanding of our shared humanity and the interconnectedness of all life. This isn't performative nicety, but radical warmth, extended without expectation of return. Those who embody this quality carry an unmistakable presence. Their very being seems to whisper, "You matter," creating spaces where others feel seen and valued. In a world often marked by division and haste, such individuals become like human sanctuaries, earning not just surface-level appreciation, but the deep respect reserved for those who remind us of our better selves. Random acts of kindness represent the flowering of this practice in daily life. The Pali Canon describes the Buddha performing countless small kindnesses, adjusting his walking pace to match slower companions, offering encouragement to struggling monks, even pausing teachings to care for a sick disciple. Modern equivalents abound. The barista who remembers regular customers' orders, the stranger who returns a dropped wallet, the co-worker who leaves anonymous notes of appreciation. Neuroscience reveals these micro-moments of connection, release oxytocin in both giver and receiver, creating what researchers call moral elevation. But beyond biochemical reactions, such gestures accumulate into reputation. The quiet understanding that here is someone who notices needs without being asked, who acts not for recognition, but because it's simply who they are. This consistency builds trust and respect that no amount of calculated charm can manufacture. Cultivating a compassionate heart transforms kindness from isolated acts to a way of being. The Buddhist practice of metta, loving kindness, meditation, systematically dissolves the illusion of separation by radiating goodwill first to ourselves, then loved ones, neutral people, difficult people, and finally, all being. This training manifests practically as the teacher who sees a struggling student's anxiety before the outburst, the nurse who recognizes a patient's unspoken fear, or the manager who senses team tensions before they escalate. Such individuals develop what psychologist Daniel Goleman calls empathic accuracy, the ability to discern others' unstated emotions. Their kindness isn't fluffy or naive. It's discerning and courageous, the kind that can set boundaries while still wishing others well. This emotional attunement earns profound respect because it makes people feel truly understood, a rare gift in our distracted world. Being a supportive friend represents kindness in its most intimate form. The Buddha's teachings on Kaliyutta, MBTT, spiritual friendship, emphasize how relationships built on mutual care and ethical growth become pillars on the path to awakening. Modern applications shine through in the friend who listens without judgment during a divorce, the sibling who shows up with groceries during illness. Buddhist psychology recognizes that such support is most powerful when free from M&A. The purest kindness expects nothing, not even gratitude. Yet paradoxically, this very selflessness makes it unforgettable. Those known for such support earn loyalty beyond measure. Their respect comes not from accomplishments, but from the safety they create simply by being reliably kind. Extending kindness to all beings elevates this practice to its fullest expression. The Buddha's insistence on non-harm, ahimsa, extends beyond humans to animals, plants, and the earth itself. A radical notion in his time that feels urgently relevant today. The vegetarian who explains their choice without judgment, the gardener who plants for pollinators, the shopper who avoids products tied to deforestation. These are modern bodhisattvas in action. Their kindness recognizes what Thich Nhat Hanh called interbeing, that to harm another is ultimately to harm ourselves. This expansive care often inspires initial curiosity. Why would someone go out of their way for an insect? Then deep reflection and finally respect, not just for the actions, but for the worldview they reveal. In a culture that often prizes individualism above all, those who demonstrate such universal kindness become living invitations to reconsider our place in the web of life. The ripple effects of kindness create an unexpected alchemy in how we're perceived. Psychological studies confirm what Buddhist texts have long suggested. That kind people are consistently rated as more attractive, trustworthy, and competent than their less kind counterparts. But beyond these social benefits, a life rooted in kindness cultivates what the Buddha called citta vimutti, liberation of heart. Freed from the burdens of resentment, competition, and isolation, kind individuals carry a lightness that others instinctively gravitate toward. Their respect comes not through striving to impress, but through the natural magnetism of someone at peace with themselves and the world. Like the moon reflecting on countless waves, their kindness touches lives they'll never know of. The impatient driver who reconsiders road rage after being led in traffic. The child who remembers a stranger's smile during hard times. The colleague inspired to pay forward unexpected help. In the end, Buddhist kindness proves itself not just a path to earning respect, but to transforming what our culture considers respectable, shifting the measure of a life from what we've acquired to how we've loved, from what we've achieved to how we've helped others shine. As the ancient texts remind us, thousands of candles can be lit from a single candle, and the life of the candle will not be shortened. Kindness is the light, inexhaustible, contagious, and illuminating the way to our shared humanity. 18th lesson of self-compassion. The sacred art of self-compassion. A Buddhist path to wholeness and earned respect. In the quiet spaces between our striving and self-improvement, Buddhism offers the revolutionary practice of self-compassion, not as narcissistic self-indulgence, but as the foundational ground from which all genuine compassion for others can grow. The Buddha taught that we cannot pour from an empty cup, yet in our modern achievement-obsessed culture, we often treat ourselves with a harshness we would never direct toward others. The Pali term metta, loving kindness, begins with directing warmth toward ourselves, before radiating it outward, recognizing that true healing starts within. Those who master this practice carry themselves with a quiet dignity, equally comfortable with their strengths and limitations. That commands a unique form of respect, not for perfection, but for the courage to embrace their full humanity. Mindful self-talk represents the first frontier in self-compassion practice. Buddhist psychology identifies manasakara, attention, as the precursor to transformation. We must first notice our inner critic before we can soften its voice. The executive who interrupts self-criticism after a failed presentation with, "I did my best given the circumstances." The student who replaces, "I'm terrible at this" with, "I'm in the learning process." The parent who speaks to themselves with the same tenderness they offer their child. These practitioners are doing the quiet work of neural rewiring that psychologist Kristen Neff's research confirms builds emotional resilience. Over time, this shift from self-flagellation to self-encouragement becomes visible in one's bearing. Others sense an absence of defensive posturing and recognize it as the mark of someone at peace with their imperfections. Embracing imperfection aligns with the Buddhist concept of tathata, suckness, seeing things as they truly are without demanding they be otherwise. The Zen tradition celebrates wabi-sabi, finding beauty in flaws and transience, while Tibetan Buddhism visualizes enlightened beings with minor imperfections to remind us that awakening doesn't mean becoming flawless. Modern applications abound. The artist who displays works with visible brushstrokes, the leader who shares strategic missteps as learning opportunities, the partner who can laugh at their own quirks. This radical acceptance paradoxically makes others more comfortable in their presence, not because standards are lowered, but because the pressure to perform perfection dissipates. The respect earned here is profound. People trust those who don't pretend to have it all together because they recognize this honesty as rare strength. Self-care in the Buddhist context transcends spa days and becomes atma-vidya, self-knowledge, the understanding that caring for our whole being is spiritual practice. The Buddha himself retreated for solitary meditation, even at the height of his teaching career, modeling the need for restoration. Today, this might manifest as the entrepreneur who guards mornings for creative work without apology, the caregiver who schedules respite before reaching burnout, or the activist who balances service with solitude. Far from selfishness, this intentional self-nourishment demonstrates what flight attendants know. We must secure our own oxygen mask first. Colleagues and loved ones may initially resent boundaries. Why won't you answer emails on vacation? But over time, they come to respect the person who models sustainable living, recognizing that, like the Buddha's middle way between austerity and indulgence, true wisdom lies in balanced self-regard. Self-forgiveness represents perhaps the most advanced form of self-compassion, requiring us to extend the same understanding to ourselves that we might offer a repentant friend. The Buddhist practice of papadasana, confession, isn't about guilt, but liberation, acknowledging mistakes without being defined by them. The doctor who learns from a misdiagnosis without abandoning confidence. The parent who makes amends for losing temper while releasing shame. The friend who acknowledges hurtful words without endless self-flagellation. These practitioners embody what researcher Brené Brown calls rising strong. Their ability to hold failure with tenderness rather than terror inspires others to do the same, creating cultures where growth matters more than blame. This emotional maturity earns deep respect because it makes people feel safe. If leaders can admit faults without crumbling, teens dare to innovate. If parents model self-forgiveness, children risk failure to learn. Ultimately, Buddhist self-compassion dismantles the illusion that we must earn our right to exist through constant achievement. Like the lotus that grows from mud, yet remains unstained, we learn to embrace our messy humanity while remembering our intrinsic worth. Those who embody this balance become beacons, not because they never struggle, but because they meet struggles with kindness rather than contempt. The respect they inspire has a unique quality, less about admiration from afar, more about giving others permission to breathe deeply in their presence. As the Buddha taught, you yourself must strive. The Buddhas only point the way. Self-compassion is that striving, not toward perfection, but toward wholeness. And in a world starving for authenticity, such wholeness may be the most respectable achievement of all. The path to earned respect, integrating Buddhist wisdom into daily life. True respect is never taken. It is given freely by others when they recognize the authenticity of your character and the integrity of your actions. These 18 Buddhist lessons we've explored together form a tapestry of timeless wisdom, each thread representing a pathway to becoming someone who naturally inspires admiration through their way of being. From the foundation of mindfulness to the flowering of generosity, from the courage of forgiveness to the serenity of equanimity, these teachings are not abstract philosophies, but practical tools for daily living. When you make these principles your own, not through perfection, but through sincere effort, you will notice a subtle shift in how people respond to you. The colleague who begins to seek your counsel during challenging moments. The friend who values your perspective during difficult decisions. The stranger who opens up to your kindness. These are the quiet signs that your inner transformation is radiating outward. The beauty of this journey lies in its gentle progression. Just as a bamboo tree spends years developing its root system before its dramatic growth becomes visible above ground, your personal evolution may unfold gradually. There will be days when patience comes easily, and others when old habits resurface. This is the natural rhythm of growth. The Buddhist concept of anuloma, gradual training, reminds us that mastery develops through persistent practice, not overnight transformation. Celebrate the small victories. The morning you choose meditation over scrolling. The moment you pause before reacting in anger. The evening you journal about gratitude instead of grievances. These seemingly minor choices accumulate into what the world perceives as your character. And it is in this accumulation that genuine respect takes root. As you continue integrating these teachings, remember that the goal is not to become someone else, but to uncover the wisest, most compassionate version of yourself. The Japanese concept of ikigai, your reason for being, aligns beautifully with Buddhist principles when we understand that our deepest fulfillment comes from aligning our lives with service, wisdom, and inner peace. Whether you're a student navigating campus life, a professional climbing the corporate ladder, or Ridgere crafting your golden years, these lessons adapt to every chapter of human experience. The business leader applying right livelihood principles to ethical decision-making. The parent weaving mindfulness into family routines. The artist expressing impermanence through creative work. Each finds their unique expression of the Dharma. Your practice becomes most powerful when it moves beyond personal benefit to inspire others. Like the Bodhisattva who vows to remain in cyclic existence until all beings are liberated. Your growth has ripple effects you may never fully witness. The coworker who starts meditating after observing your calm under pressure. The neighbor who begins composting after seeing your mindful consumption habits. The child who learns kindness by your example. These are the unmeasured impacts of your journey. In a world hungry for authentic role models, your commitment to living these principles makes you a quiet beacon of hope and possibility. We at Wisdom Diaries are honored to accompany you on this transformative path. As you move forward, remember the Buddha's encouragement to be a lamp unto yourself. Trust your inner wisdom while drawing nourishment from the teachings. Each time you choose compassion over criticism, presence over distraction, or generosity over scarcity thinking, you're not just improving your life, you're contributing to a more conscious, connected world. If these reflections have illuminated your path, we invite you to subscribe and join our growing community of seekers. Share this video with someone who might benefit, not because we seek numbers, but because wisdom grows when shared. Your engagement fuels our mission to make timeless teachings accessible in our modern world. Until next time, may you walk your path with confidence and kindness, remembering that every step taken with awareness brings you closer to the peace and respect you seek. The journey continues, and we're walking it together, one mindful moment at a time.